6:30 on the nose, so we'll go ahead and get started. Well, welcome to the June meeting of the Greenbrier County Republican Club. So we're excited to have you here. Thanks for coming out today on a warm afternoon and spending some time with us. We will hopefully pick up the agenda and that red folder. There's several copies. If you haven't got one, please feel free to take one up. With that, I would like to ask, are there any new members or new guests with us tonight? Any new folks that want to be brave and introduce themselves?
David Schaefer.
David?
He's not a member of the club, but he is a Republican.
Yeah, good enough. David, thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate you being here. Anybody else? Okay, very good, very good. The other thing I would say before we move to the invocation, we did make a change to our traditional agenda. Mr. McCuskey needs to get back to Charleston as early as possible this evening for his wife and family, and so we're going to accommodate that by moving him up in the schedule just a little bit. So we'll do our normal business updates following his talk with us this evening. So I appreciate you being flexible with that. So that said, Brents, if you'd like to start us off with an invocation, I would appreciate it.
Lord, we thank you for your presence. We thank you that we are healthy enough to be here and to do the business of the club. We thank you that we have the means to inform ourselves of our duties, our responsibilities, and we ask your help in making ourselves aware of your issues. We pray that you will withhold your hand in judgment of the United States. We pray that you will expand your revivals, your renewals, from one town to another, to a state, that we will again acknowledge you as our God and your sovereign power over this republic. And Lord, we pray that we will be attentive and courtesy, extend our courtesy to each other, and to trust each other in our responsibilities. In Jesus' name, amen.
Frank, if you want to lead us to pledge allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Allie, you want to talk a little bit about our financial performance?
Sure. Currently, we have a balance of $11,944.17. For the month of May, we earned $1.02 in interest. We received a check for $150 for the dinner. That was kind of late. And expenditures was $171.18. There was Old Stone Presbyterian Church. We went ahead and paid 5 months at $30 a month. Barbara Tuckweller was $21.18 for reimbursement, and that's what we got.
Any questions for Alan?
Again, my book is here if anybody ever wants to look at it. Receipts, everything.
Very
The audit's coming.
Bring it on.
So again, as I said earlier, we're going to pause for a few moments because we did invite J.B. McCuskey to come down and speak to us. This is the second or third time in the county recently, so you know the way down here pretty well by now. So J.B., we thank you very much for coming down, and we appreciate you being here.
Sure.
And we'll turn the floor over to you.
Where would you like for me to stand?
Anywhere you're comfortable, sir.
I'm pretty comfortable right here, if you don't mind. Well, let me start by thanking you guys for having me. We live in a state that is hard to get around, and when you have 55 counties that you have to be in, 55 counties worth of people that deserve to hear from all their candidates, it's really, really welcome for us to have these opportunities, because otherwise people get left out. And so I'm really thankful for the opportunity, and I'm thankful for all the work that you guys do. Let me also say that, we are in a primary here, right? And I think as Republicans, what is the most important thing for us to understand, it's okay, is that primaries are an indication of strength. And we shouldn't be shying away from the idea that we now live in a world where there's lots of people who want to lead our state from our own party. And, Doug and I are old enough to remember there was a time where we had to beg people to run for offices. right? And we would show up to these events and there'd be 3 people. And you'd put somebody up for a sacrificial lamb to run for auditor and treasurer and hope for the best, right? And now we have multiple people with experience from our party for every single one of these offices, which means that we get to be very selective about who we decide to lead our party and our state. And so, you know, there's the sort of good old boy network is always trying to say, oh, you know, you guys can make a deal or figure this out or do these other things. At the end of the day, primaries are good. Primaries cull the herd, and they get to the place where we find the people who are going to do the best job at the offices are the most important. And so I'm really thankful to be in a race with a bunch of other people who are experienced, who are good people, and are trying really hard to do the right thing for West Virginia. So I don't think that should be lost on anybody. Every single person that puts their hat in the race to try to be the governor of West Virginia is a person that probably 15, 20 years ago wouldn't consider doing it. And I think that that is a real testament to the work that all of us have done to make our party and our state in a place where it is now. With all that being said, you know, I was in the legislature, I was in the last Republican minority and the first Republican majority of our state legislature. Being in the minority is really fun. You just walk in every day and you pull the pin out of a grenade, throw it in the chamber and walk out and let the other side sort of scatter around, right? But it isn't very much fun not getting anything done. And so then the following year, Tim Armstead was the first Republican speaker in the history of our state capitol building. It's actually kind of hard to believe. He was the first Republican speaker in the entire history of our state's capital. That is, it was a meaningful day, right? When we were sitting there getting sworn in as the first Republican majority, all of us understood the weight that was on our shoulders at that point, right? You cannot blame the other side when you're in charge. And those first 2 years of that legislature were furious. I don't know if you guys remember, but we got so much done in those first 2 years that it's kind of hard to really contemplate. When you start to look at, you know, tort reform, right to work, and all of the unbelievable anti-business policies that the state had that we were able to finally turn around. And today, our legislature is continuing that work. And what you see is the world is looking at West Virginia now as a place where we have laws that are pro-family, they are pro-business, they are pro all of the things that we as Republicans believe create a world of freedom where people want to live, right? And regardless of how you think of what's going on in the Senate race or what this governor has done, he has done a really great job in economic development. He has a team of economic development people who are turning the eyes of the world onto West Virginia, and they've been very successful. We are cutting ribbons at a pace that we've never seen before. We have Nucor coming, and we have Berkshire Hathaway coming, and there's the expansion of Procter & Gamble. There's buses being built in Charleston. Every day it seems like there's a new business coming to West Virginia, but this is a little bit of a cautionary tale. And the reason that I'm running for governor is there are multiple of them. But the biggest one is that what I see is that we have a lot of politicians that are taking a giant victory lap around West Virginia in a way that is very, very premature. They are saying, look, we have a business in Point Pleasant and another business is coming to Wheeling. We have another business coming here. But the facts are that we still have a government that fails its people. And the data backs this up. We, this year, we're 48th in economic outlook in the country. There's only 2 states that have a worse, and this is rich states, poor states. This isn't some liberal newspaper. This is where we go to see who is being successful. We were one of the only states in the entire country to lose population last year. We lost 44,000 people. But I think most importantly is that the government is in charge of doing, the government must do 3 things, and they're in charge of doing 3 things, right? Everything else, what did Reagan say? If you can find it in the yellow book, the government shouldn't do it. Or the yellow pages, I mean, right? And so, in my estimation, the government must do 3 things. They must educate our children, right? They must deliver cost-effective and useful infrastructure, and they have to make sure that those who start with less of a chance have a real pathway to get to the middle class. We're talking about kids in foster care. We're talking about kids that quite frankly don't have very good parents. And there are thousands of those across our state. And so, where are we? What does the next governor have to do? The next governor has to be able to look at this state bureaucracy, which has done nothing but get bigger and less effective and less accountable for my entire life and say that's enough. Enough is enough. We've invited the world here, right? People are looking at West Virginia as a place that they want to move. But they're not going to stay here if our schools are last, our infrastructure is a D+, and we aren't taking care of the people who cannot take care of themselves. So where do we go? What's the next step, right? Well, in my experience in the legislature, when a bureaucrat would walk into our finance committee, we would say, why are we failing? Pick the issue. Why are our roads failing? Why do we not have water and sewer? Why are there gas lines that don't need to be run? Why are we paying 70% more for electricity today than when I graduated from high school? Right? The answer to that question is always, well, we don't have enough money. You got to give us more money. Appropriate me more money. I will stop failing if you give me more money. Well, on the three issues that I just mentioned, we spent $7 billion at DHHR last year. We spent $5 billion on our public schools, and the federal government just gave us $13 billion to fix our infrastructure. Those are all with B's. $13 billion, right? Does that sound like a spending problem to anybody here? It doesn't sound like a spending problem to me. It sounds like a process problem. And in my role as a state auditor, one of the great opportunities that I had, and quite frankly, the reason that I chose this office as where I wanted to run 6 years ago, I get to see how the entire bureaucracy works from soup to nuts. I get to see when and why they fail. I get to see and I get to question them as to why they're failing. And I get to see in a very, very first-hand way that almost none of them are committed to a process improvement. None of them believe that they could do their job better. What they believe is we don't have enough money to do it right. And I'm here to tell you that that is just wrong. There is a way to do this better. There's a way to do this with less money, and there's a way to do it where we treat every taxpayer and every single person in this state like a customer, right? There are ideals of private business that are really important for government. You cannot run government exactly like a business because we don't make a profit. People that say we need to run our government like a business have never had a business. I have a business, right? I've signed the front and the back of lots of paychecks. And our job as a business is to make as much money as humanly possible. Our job is to take every product that we sell it for the most money we can to the most people we can the most often. The government's job is, like I just said, is to educate our children, provide infrastructure, and to make sure that people that have less of an opportunity have a real path to the middle class, right? So why do I know how to do this? Well, let's talk about what has happened in the auditor's office. So when I started, we had 214 employees. We have 161 now. When I started, we had a $2.9 million general revenue appropriation. We have about a $2.1 million general revenue appropriation now. This is just in my office, right? So we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30% smaller both in revenue and in personnel. But what's interesting is that in my time as auditor, we have done several things. We've added over 900 audits to our list. We've reduced the total audit time for all state agencies by almost 3,000%. We have created something called the Public Integrity and Fraud Unit. We've prosecuted to felony conviction 43 people, the 43rd and 44th actually just were today, people that stole from the state of West Virginia, right? So we've recovered somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million in fraud, and we have found more than $10 million worth of fraud. Right? This was all things that weren't happening before that. We made West Virginia the most transparent state in the entire United States. We've completely transformed our land program and torn down over $30 million worth of dilapidated properties to welcome new families here. We have completely opened up all of the books in West Virginia, made West Virginia the most transparent and accountable state in the country. As you stand here, you are in a place where you have access in real time to every expenditure of your city, school board, state, and county. Think about that. You can see how every single one of your tax dollars is spent from the beginning to the end right now online, which means you can hold every single person that you've ever voted for accountable for what they do. The government speaks through spending, right? We don't do anything without spending money. That's how you can tell if a politician has told you the truth. People walk into rooms like this all the time and they promise you the world. I'm going to do this. Well, for my entire life, you could never figure out whether or not they did it. It's all about priority, right? And so now we have that opportunity. So my office has been able to basically completely reform itself, do every single thing that we do better with 30% less people and 30% less money. And what I'm telling you is I actually understand how to do that to the rest of our giant bloated bureaucracy. It isn't working, guys. What we have to do, we are not being effective at. And the next governor's job is to do that. Here's the great news. The great news is this, is that we live in one of the most unique places in America, in the most unique time in our history. The opportunity for West Virginia as it stands right now is that the world has gone completely crazy. Everywhere around us, the world has gone crazy. The ideals of family and family values and modesty and humbleness and patriotism and freedom don't exist in 49 other states anymore. And there are thousands of young families, just like mine, who are looking for a place where they can move with their family and their kids and find freedom and find a life that matches what their values are. That's here. That is who we are, right? Everybody likes to talk about, West Virginia's greatest resource is our kids, right? Well, that's kind of true. I believe our greatest resource is our values. I believe the thing that sets us apart from everywhere else in the country is that when you move your family to West Virginia, your neighbor is going to care about you, your kids, and your future. And if something happens, they're going to walk across the street and help you. Your teachers, you're going to know them. They live in your neighborhood, right? These are the things that people who have, I got an 8 and a 5-year-old, right? I just took my 5-year-old to her last ever day of daycare. It was terrifying and scary and very sad. But she's going to end up in school next year with all of my neighbors, right? I get to walk to school. That doesn't happen in Baltimore or Dallas or DC or San Francisco or Denver or Charlotte or you name the place where everyone lives. People are living in prisons. They live in gated communities where they moved because there was a Trader Joe's and a Whole Foods, right? Trader Joe's and Whole Foods are pretty nice, right? I wouldn't mind another Trader Joe's, but Kroger's is pretty good too. And I will trade Trader Joe's to be surrounded by people that share my vision for this country, my value set, and my understanding that promoting our children's success is the single most important thing that any of us can do. That's here. This is the last outpost for American idealism in this entire country. And as we're selling this place to everyone else in the world, right? That's our message. That is why people will want to be here. But they will only stay if they are met with a government that is small, accountable, transparent, and importantly, effective. Think about this. What was the first thing they had to do when they announced Nucor? First thing they had to do was they had to spend millions of dollars running a gas, water, and sewer line out to the site. This is how we do infrastructure in this state, is we play whack-a-mole. And so we're running around telling all these companies we've got site after site after site, come here, come here, come here, right? But the people that already live here don't have access to those things. We are 7 years removed from a 1,000-year flood, right? You guys all remember it. I was here that day. We have water and sewer issues that plague our state and have for the last 50 years. We have ancient infrastructure that requires actual, complete overhaul. We have to take care of the people that live here first. How many of you guys have had a boil water advisory this year? How many of you have had one this month? Well, it's only the first of the month. How many of you have had one in the last 30 days, right? West Virginia leads the country in boil water advisories. We have third world country infrastructure. We have been talking about putting internet in West Virginia for 25 years. At some point, you have to just build it. They came out with another map today. Another map. I haven't seen the map, but I promise you I can tell you what's on it. Guess what? They don't have internet in Clay County. They don't. I don't need a map to tell me that. Right? They don't have internet in Gilmer County. They don't have internet in Calhoun County. They don't have internet in Hampshire, Hardy, Tucker, Pocahontas, McDowell, Mingo, Wayne, you name it, right? We all know where they don't have internet. Just go build it. Stop doing maps. The next governor is going to have to make sure that that happens. The next governor is also going to have to look at our school system and say, why are our children not achieving? I'm not saying we got bad teachers, and I'm not saying we got bad principals. We have great teachers and great principals, but we don't have enough of them. We just don't. Our children are dead last in the entire country in third grade achievement. That is just a fact. That has to change, or when people move here, they're not going to stay. My kids are going to be fine. My wife and I have everything that my children need to be successful. They have two parents who hug them and feed them and love them and teach them about God and teach them how to be real members of society. There are children all over this state who do not have that, right? And what does that mean? We have to figure out how to fix that problem, or every single thing that's happening right now. We lead the country in obesity, we lead the country in diabetes, we lead the country in drug overdose deaths, right? Those problems get solved when children are 4, not when they're 25. Right? And how do you solve those problems when children are 4? Then what you have to do is you have to say, I'm not spending a penny until I make sure that every single child has that opportunity. Right? There are 17,000 people in West Virginia today who are not in the workforce because they don't have access to child care. Think about that. 17,000 people want to work but can't because they don't have access to child care. We live in a place where you can solve 2 giant problems with 1 great solution, right? Every single child has parents who are struggling with substance abuse or were very, very young when they had their children or are struggling being a great parent. Those kids need a place to go, right? They absolutely need a place to go. And if we can figure out a way, I actually know the way to do this, but to lead the country in child care options for young families, that says to every single person in the world that's looking for a place to go, when I get here, my kids are going to be safe, right? And guess what? Do you guys know how much child? Anybody here got a kid in daycare right now? It's $1,000 a month per kid. So it's $1,000 a month per kid. I write my church a $900 check every single month for my 5-year-old to go to TK, right? You have to make $45,000 a year in order to even afford to send a kid to daycare, which means you're paying money, almost all of your expendable money, for somebody else to watch your kid, which is what almost every really good parent would rather be doing anyways, right? So what do? What's the answer? Then you stay home, right? And you get on the system, and you get to be with your own kids, but you don't have the job that's making everybody else's life better, right? And you're not promoting your own career, and you're doing all of the things that makes the economy go. I think that finding a solution to that problem not only solves our economic development issues, right? We can say to every single company, you come here and every young family get a $2,000 a month break until their kids go to our great public schools. But I think even more importantly is if we can find a place for kids to go at 2, right? A public school option for kids starting at age 2, and it's an option. You don't have to send your kids if you don't want to, but it's an option. Use the Hope Scholarship. It's the perfect vehicle for this. Then every single one of these kids who's starting off in a place that's very different than mine is going to get hugged every day. They're going to get 2 hot meals every day. When they get to kindergarten, they're going to know how to read. They're going to know how to be. They're going to know how to talk, right? But I think the most important part is that there are people who are going to be with these children. The thing that we find is that kids get to school and no one has ever checked on them in the 5 years that they've been in life. They start at kindergarten at 5 or 6 years old, and a lot of them can't even talk yet. It's something like 20% of kids that start kindergarten in West Virginia aren't even potty trained. Right? And if that's where you are at kindergarten, imagine where you're going to be at 3rd grade. This problem, the solution to the problems that we're describing, starts by making sure that our children are ready to go when they turn 10. And that actually starts here when they turn 2. We have to look at this differently than everywhere else because our problems are different, right? On infrastructure, at the end of the day, every single person here deserves to have clean water, inexpensive power, inexpensive gas, inexpensive water, and everything needs to work. You need to be able to move wherever you want to go in this state and find access to the things that the government has to provide you, right? And when it comes to our schools, here's what I know, guys. Nobody wants to talk about this, but our teachers are wildly underpaid. We don't pay them like professionals. And we don't need to necessarily pay them a lot more at the beginning, but they need to be making a lot more at the end. And we have something that we call the 50-80 plan. The idea being that every single teacher needs to be making $80,000 a year when they turn 50. I checked out at the grocery store the other day, and my 7th grade science teacher was my bagger at Kroger's. She's 84 years old. She had to work at Kroger's because her pension wasn't enough for her to live on. She taught for 41 years. That is pathetic.
And no cost of living increase.
It's pathetic, yes. If you want to fix the schools, the solution to every problem I've ever seen is to flood it with talent. Flood it with talent, right? And if you look at every single future educator in West Virginia State, when you are 25 years into this career, right? If you've done everything you need to do, you've hit every benchmark, you've done all of the testing and all of the career advancement, and all the master's degrees and everything you need to do, we're going to pay you like somebody who's a professional. You're going to have enough money to buy a condo at Myrtle Beach or actually retire comfortably, right? That's when people find that job, stay in that job, and stay great at that job. What we do now, are there any teachers here, any educators? So if you want to make money in the school system, where do you have to go?
Not in this state.
The board office.
Administration, yeah.
You got to go to the board office, right?
Yeah, I worked 40 years. I retired for 40 years and I had a double master's. And
Just the 2 masters, you didn't want to go for 4 of them?
no, I have a double master's. One's in leadership, be a principal, and the other was an elementary teacher.
So the best job in the school system should be a principal, not a superintendent. So what we do, and this happens in organizations all over the place, especially ones where jobs are handed out because of who you are, not what you've done, right? Is we get all the money as far away from kids as possible, right? I've seen a lot of award shows, right? I don't watch them as much as I used to, but when people win an award, they will very frequently say, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my second grade teacher, Mrs. Smith, or Mr. Anderson, whatever it is. I've never heard anybody say, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my school board superintendent. Right? And on a baseball field, they don't pay the manager more than the first baseman. Right? You put the talent on the field. And so we have to flip that dichotomy. The idea that being a great teacher is the most important part of our school system has to completely overtake the idea that administrators and bureaucrats are more important to our system. We have to pay our teachers like they're the most important people in our school system, because they are. And that's how you do this without making it cost more. You have to change your priority. If your priority is children, not government, you pay teachers. If your priority is government, not children, you pay administrators. The same can be said throughout the entire world of our government. So, we have this enormous opportunity, right? Anybody here ever seen that show, Yellowstone? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for the people that haven't seen it, I apologize if this is a spoiler alert, but John Dutton runs for governor, and he lives in Montana. And what's happening in Montana and he's a rancher, is that people from California are moving to Montana because they want the lifestyle, right? They want to live in the beautiful place with the lower taxes and the big yard and all of it. And what they found is that Montana just was starting to turn into California, right? And so when you approach this the way that I do, John Dutton's campaign slogan was "Progress stops here," which is a hilarious Hollywoodized version of what I'm about to say. The point here is families, not companies. Kids and families will come here for the right reason. We will be attracting West Virginians, not people who want to live in West Virginia. Those are 2 very, very different concepts, right? And then it's going to start building on itself. And when that success starts happening and every single young family across this country says, oh my God, did you see where Mary and Steve Smith moved? Like, look at their house and their yard and the school's perfect and, they could walk here and all of these things. It's going to take off. It has to. Because all of the other things that people say are our greatest assets still exist. We're still 8 hours from 2/3 of the nation's population. We still have the best outdoor recreation, the prettiest places to live in the entire world, and I think maybe most importantly, there's a quality of life here that just doesn't exist other places. I'm 5 minutes from my church, I'm 5 minutes from soccer, I'm 5 minutes from school, I'm 5 minutes from my office, right? So I am probably not untypical in this way, but my 5 best friends are all gone. Right? I got 1 in Dallas, 2 in Raleigh, and 2 in DC. And we all have a text chain together, right? And so these guys are all very successful, and they could all be successful here if they weren't so soft. But they're constantly sending me these newspaper stories. It's some guy got high and drove his four-wheeler off a bridge or whatever it is. They're like, how do you live around these people? And first I was like, well, guys, you could easily stop complaining about this and move home and help me fix it, right? But then I sort of realized, you know what? They're looking at the wrong stuff. And I went back and I looked at how much time they spend just doing stuff. Right? It takes them an hour to get to work, it takes them 30 minutes to get to church, it takes them 25 minutes to get to soccer practice, you name it. When my kids graduate from high school, I will have gotten about 17 more months with them than they will with their kids. Just based on lifestyle, right? And Trader Joe's are nice, Starbucks is good, you guys are getting one here, I heard, right? But how many of you guys would trade $5,000 a year in salary at Starbucks for a year and a half with your kid? Right? That is invaluable. And that is what we're selling. We are selling the single greatest place on earth to be a parent. And that's meaningful. But it's going to take true and honest and complete reform of a bureaucracy that hasn't been touched by Republicans in a very long time. And for me, that's what the next governor's greatest task is. How do we sell what I just talked about? And then how do we make the product usable for the people that we're bringing in here? And I have never been more bullish on our ability to do that. Everything's in place. And I'm really, really excited to tell this story to the rest of the state. And I'm really, really hopeful that there's a whole group of West Virginians who are ready to do the exact same thing. Because I think it's time for us to truly turn this place into the place that we all know it should be. And that's going to be a testament to our values. And I would love to answer any questions you guys have. Yes, sir.
You were addressing in part on education the state aid formula.
Yes.
Which is one that pays a 25-year-old principal more than a teacher who's been there 30 years. So you got a big fight on your hands. How would you address that?
How would you address, well, I don't know that the fight's going to be between principals and teachers. The fight's going to be between administrators and teachers. And the way you fight that is you just know you're right. Right? And too long, we've allowed bureaucrats to run roughshod over what the proper answer is. And to be fair, that just takes a dogged determination that anybody who's ever spent much time around me will tell you that I have. And you just have to say, look, you're wrong. You're not a bad person, but you're wrong. And I can tell you you're wrong because we're dead last in education.
And it's going to take a legislative answer to that problem.
There are multiple facets to turning that ship around. And I will say the last thing, and this is kind of a smaller issue, but it's something I'm very passionate about. We got to stop getting rid of our little schools, right?
Amen.
Our little teeny community schools.
Yes.
So I have to manage all the cities in town, right? We do all their audits, we do all their budget revisions, we approve their budgets. Every failing city, almost every failing city, I shouldn't say every, their failure is caused by the closure of their elementary school. And in this place, every single one of those schools was where everyone in the community went to do stuff.
Correct.
And, right, if we're going to tell everyone that this place is Mayberry, right, this is where you move. You can move to White Sulphur Springs or Lewisburg, or you can move to Hinton, or, I mean, you name the absolutely idyllic small town. That only works if you're not 20 minutes from school. And we can do that. And it actually solves the other problem that I was talking about before, too. If you're going to start offering public school options for kids that are much younger, guess what we have everywhere? We got schools that are half full. We're already turning the lights on, we're already turning the heat and air conditioning on, and we're already making food for everybody. All you got to do is get a teacher in a classroom and transportation for the kids. And you're starting to solve problems with resources that we already have. I would submit to you that the cost in some ways shouldn't determine whether or not we do it, but I will also tell you that a really, really smart person who understands the way the government works can do this at a value that far outpaces its cost. Yes, sir.
I've been trying to get a copy of the test that's given to all the schools in the fall.
Yeah.
Elementary, intermediate.
They won't give it to you?
You can't even begin to talk to somebody about
Interesting.
it. And I got a fifth grade book and I flunked.
You flunked.
I got a college education, master's degree, all that good stuff. I couldn't understand what they were asking.
So I have both fortunately and unfortunately a little bit of current knowledge of this. They teach math weird.
Yeah.
They don't teach math, they teach how to do stuff.
That's what I was gonna say. What they're really teaching is problem solving instead of math.
Format is what it is.
Yeah, I don't even know if it even is Common Core anymore. It's almost something beyond that. And I can't really help my kid do math because I tell her just to do the math.
Well, would you see if you could get me a
Sure.
copy of that
It has to be public.
elementary and junior high, because
Yeah.
our high school, the west and east, one was 30% proficient, the other was 20% proficient.
And I'll tell you on that testing, one of the biggest things we do wrong is that we rank our own schools. It's crazy. They all make C's. We can make the ranking whatever we want. Like, why wouldn't we figure out a way to make our schools be A's? And the way you do that is by you measure the delta as opposed to the result. All that matters, a great teacher, you tell me what's harder, to get a kid from 90% to 95% or a kid that's at 10% to 20%. I promise you it is much harder to get a kid from 10 to 20 than it is from 90 to 95. But I can also promise you that the teacher who gets the kid from 10 to 20 is going to be seen as a failure, and the teacher that gets the kid from 90 to 95 is going to be seen as a success. We're measuring the success of educators wrong too. And like I said before, my kids could have 8 bad teachers and probably end up just fine. But there's some kids who need great teachers every time. And those are the kids that we, as the government, truly have to be worried about, because they're the ones that we are truly responsible to make sure that they're successful, or to make sure they're given an opportunity to be successful.
On the internet, why don't you get Mr. Musk to get you a satellite or two, like you did for Ukraine,
All right.
and park them right over that county?
So the answer to this entire question is that, and I will tell you hilariously, I was in a meeting, this was 9 years ago, where we were discussing broadband. Everybody loves to have a brunch and a lunch, and they sit in places where the internet is very fast and very available and talk about all the country bumpkins that don't have it, and they lunch themselves to death, right? And I said in this committee meeting, I said, why don't we just get wireless internet everywhere, right? And they said, well, no, that will never be fast enough. Well, a 5G connection on your phone is 20 times faster than the average connection that people have wired in West Virginia. There isn't a single thing that you can't do on a 5G connection. And guess what? There is a seamless and complete 5G wireless network in Nigeria. Right?
And Ukraine.
Correct. You can go to places that have no infrastructure, that are not the world's leaders in every single category, and never drop a phone call. But when you look at the problems that are created, you can almost always find the solution, the reason for the problem, and who is going to benefit from a certain kind of infrastructure, right? And I will tell you, Starlink works. And it was literally designed for this problem. Starlink was created to bring fast internet to disparate places that have terrains that are not ideal for laying infrastructure. And my biggest fear is that we're getting ready to spend $3 billion building last year's internet tomorrow. And once again, we're going to get all the way done with it, and then everyone's going to say, well, we don't even use wired internet anymore. Because it took us so long to solve the problem, the solution to the problem won't even be the right solution anymore. Which is the most West Virginia thing of all time.
I have wireless internet now.
Do you have Starlink?
No, I have DirecTV.
Oh, does it work pretty good or no?
Yes.
It works fine, right?
Yeah.
There is also a speed of internet that is sufficient, right? And everybody talks about it has to be X fast. Well, it really only needs to be as fast as it needs to be. There's a bit of a law of diminishing returns there. If you can stream your TV and your kids can do their homework and everybody can get online and do everything they need to do, it doesn't need to be 3 times faster than that. It needs to be that fast.
Amen.
You talk about
Yes.
retention of teachers,
Yes.
like in West Virginia, and bringing teachers into West Virginia. What is being done for teacher safety, and I will say this because my daughter left West Virginia as a teacher because she was assaulted by a student and the child received 3 days suspension, no safe schools hearing, no nothing.
So a few things. So, it is my personal opinion that a school resource officer needs to be deployed in every school right now. When you are a parent of a kid in public school and you watch elementary schools turn into war zones, and you walk up to your school every day, and there's a bunch of people there that really care about my kids. They really do. But they have, the entire school is windows, right? And they can't defend that place. And we are crazy and naive and stupid to think that that isn't going to happen here. It just is. There's crazy people everywhere. And there's something rotting in the core of our society that is causing people to want to do this. And I can assure you that it doesn't give a crap what state it's in.
But these are children assaulting teachers.
Well,
and we're seeing it on the news, every other day.
We also have teachers assaulting students right now. The answer to that question is very, very difficult. But the true answer is that our system now sends kids home that are acting out, right? They don't need to be in the classroom with the teacher they assaulted, but being in the place that created that behavior is just as bad. And we don't have any really systematic way to find the mental health that these kids need. We're asking their third grade teachers to do it. They're not equipped to do that, especially not for 30 of them.
So are they not doing referrals?
They're not doing anything because there isn't really a plan. And the answer to your question is, I don't actually know how you deal with children assaulting teachers, but there aren't really bad kids, right? God doesn't really create bad children. God creates bad parents. And bad parents make inherently innocent children bad. So sticking a kid who's doing that back at their house for a week is the dumbest thing you could ever do. All you're going to do is reinforce the behavior.
But my problem is, if I assault you, what will I get? 6 months maybe, some fines. But a
The other way around.
16-year-old assaults my daughter,
Yep.
who's the teacher, and he gets a 3-day suspension, and it just irritates me.
Well, and the juvenile criminal justice system is just different too. But I think the most important thing there is to get that child away from the other children, preventing them from learning, getting them away from the teacher that they're obviously making very, very uncomfortable and assaulting, and finding them a place where hopefully we can modify that behavior. It might be jail. I don't know. Do you think it's jail?
No, I
Not
don't
in
think
West
that.
Virginia.
We have plenty of juvenile systems here.
Right. I mean,
centers.
and
When
the
you
long
send-
and the short of it is that we don't have, the biggest problem that you just raised is that nobody's even talking about it.
And did they not implement something in the school system, No Child Left Behind? Was that not kind of,
That was a long time ago.
okay.
I think that was George W. Bush, actually.
Oh, well, I'm only 21, so I don't even know who that is. Totally joking, that's
Okay.
fine.
And so they did, no
Could that
child.
not be like restructured, or,
It could be. I often find it frustrating when we try to compare ourselves to other places, and legislators will say, oh, we just need to do what Virginia does, or Ohio does, or whatever. Well, they're not like here. We have a pretty unique place, right? The rural nature of our state, the ways that, we still have a pretty significant agrarian society here. We have people that work really, really weird shifts, weird jobs. It's just not Virginia or Maryland or Ohio. And so our solutions, I think, have to be driven by us. And they certainly shouldn't be driven by Washington. At the end of the day, you can attribute almost every single one of our state's problems to an adherence to Washington that we just have to break ourselves up. And every single time we say, oh, Washington will come in and give us some more money, right? And at some point we have to do it ourselves so that somebody else can't tell us what to do. And I don't remember what the child left behind did. It sounds catchy though.
just read up on it. It's got some good points in it, and it works.
It was a testing thing, if I remember
It was.
correctly.
It's a
It was a benchmarking system where they were trying to determine what was working in kids' lives and what wasn't. Is that? Yeah.
Basically, there was more,
It was a little bit more than that, but yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you said you lost 44,000 residents. How many projections have you gained since COVID hit? many people moved to this?
That was a total. So we lost 44, our population went down 44,000 people last year.
Last year?
Yeah.
I thought that was from the census.
Most of that was because of age.
Correct. We die quickly here. We don't have enough babies. We die really young. And that
Okay, I understand what you're meaning with the deaths and et cetera, not just.
total population, right? And a thriving place, there's a lot more births than deaths. Way more than we have.
Yes.
And people that have children are hopeful about the future, right? There's a sort of this inherent, I mean, I remember when my wife and I were sitting down and God, we waited forever to have kids, and when we decided to have them, it was because we believed that we were bringing them into a place that was going to be great for them. You know, we were in a place where we could afford it. We were in a place where we were going to be good parents. You know, we had a stable home and stable income and all this other stuff. There's a lot of people that don't think about that before they have kids, but there's a lot of people that do. And making this place feel that hopeful is going to cause, in my opinion, a lot of other people who want to have babies to have them here. The best population increase is with infants. The second best is with new families. Yes?
I spent the bulk of my afternoon trying to help one of my nurses who's a single mom in the Nicholas County area, has 3 young kids, and her babysitter quit on her a few weeks ago. And she can't afford the daycare because she makes too much money and the father does not pay child support or provides her no assistance. And this is someone who has a physical therapy assistant degree. She has a nursing degree. She has aspirations to increase her education. And her option is to leave this job that she does not want to leave, to work a night shift job and displace her kids every night at her mother's house so that there's somebody to watch them, so that she can continue to earn a living. And she said it would be real easy for me to quit work right now. She said, because I could get a check for these kids.
Yep. That's my point.
And she's breaking down and she's crying. And so what are we going to do in West Virginia to incentivize the people who are making an effort and disincentivize the people who are doing nothing and get them out of this state?
So, a couple things. Child care shouldn't be means tested, right? So this woman is trying so hard that the government won't help her. Think about that. She's doing it so right that she isn't eligible for any of the subsidies, quote unquote subsidies, right? You have to say, we believe that everyone should have access for their children to be cared for by somebody while they are contributing to our economy. And I think if you take that part of it out, it starts to really work. And the way that you incentivize new child care options is you use the Hope Scholarship, right? What did we say? We said to every parent in West Virginia, smartly and rightly, that you should be able to send your kid to private school if you want. And we're going to give you, what is it, $4,800 a year? $5,000 a year? I don't, it's some, $4,500, right? Public school's always going to be the gold standard. 90% of our students are always going to go to our public schools. But, say you just open the Hope Scholarship up at age 2, right? And then there are legions of people who have access to Hope Scholarship money, and every church in every town is going to open up a child care center. I promise. It has to happen. There's a market for it, because there's demand. The problem is nobody has the money to do it. And our DHHR makes opening a child care center borderline impossible. It's like almost actually impossible. Another just sort of anecdotal story, the woman who ran my child's, what third base is, you guys have third base here, where you go after school, like your parents work. The woman who ran our third base is now the chicken cook at Chipotle. Because she makes $7 more an hour cooking chicken at Chipotle than making sure that my children are safe. That's insane. It makes no sense. And what that says to the rest of the world is that we don't value that specific service. And we don't value people doing it. And if our kids and their development and their success are our single most important priority, you do it the other way around. I mean, at the end of the day,
who's going to do this? The legislature? I mean, honestly, somebody's got to do something.
Well, it takes a governor to direct the legislature, right? And so the legislature is going to do the things that they want to do, but one of the governor's biggest jobs is to develop large-scale plans to fix big problems and then work with the legislature to get them passed. Every single first day of every single legislature, there should be a myriad of governor's bills that we are working on together to solve the biggest problems. I haven't seen one of those in a long time.
Well, unfortunately, we've forgotten about communities and people helping people.
Yep.
I mean, I can imagine if you came to my church and stood up there and said, look, you know, this is the situation with the lady, we need somebody to help take care of the children. And I can guarantee you, people would step up. And we look to the government, we look to, you know, the politicians and all to solve our problems, and they should. They should help us. But in the meantime, you know, we don't join together anymore. We don't even think about talking to our neighbors and our friends and our churches and with, you know, to help out, to step up and to walk beside each other.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, and that's, the America that existed in 1965 is not the America that exists today.
But it could be.
It could be, you're right. And I'll tell you, it's real hard to be a parent right now. You know, I'm 41. And when I got up in the morning in the summertime, when I was 10 years old, my parents were already at work. They didn't know where I was 80% of my life. Right? Like, I got up in the morning and I rode my bike wherever the heck I wanted to go. I went to the pool, or I went to the mall, or I went and got ice cream, or I, you know, went with my friends. Street lights came on, you went home, right? You can't do that now, right? You as a parent, you cannot parent that way anymore. It's not a possibility. And so all of these things are what add to these expenses, and it makes the idea that you can get by on the amount of money that people make and having children at the same time, it's just a different world. And we have to evolve faster than the states around us, because this is, in my opinion, going to be the single issue that drives where people end up, is how we handle our schools and our childcare.
JB, if folks want to learn more about you and your campaign, how do they?
Yeah, that's McCuskey4WB.com. Is that right?
Yep.
41, so I don't really understand the internet all that well, right? But I would say more importantly, the WB checkbook is the most important place that any of you guys can go. So the last thing I'll tell you is two things. One, holding elected officials accountable is the single most important thing that people can do. You have to find out what the people you're voting for have done, right? And you have to determine whether or not that is the things that you wanted them to do. And if it's not, vote for the other person. It's incumbent upon all of us to provide that information to you, right? So my biggest goal, the biggest thing that I want out of the checkbook is to create an army of informed citizens who walk into ballot booths confident of who they're voting for and why. That is how you get better politicians. It's exactly the same concept as the schools, right? You flood the government with super talented people, you're going to get much better results. And the only people that can do that are voters. And the last thing I'll tell you is this. So when I first started running for office 10 years ago, my mom told me, she said, great politicians fear winning and bad politicians fear losing. Didn't really make sense to me until I got a little bit older. My mom's passed away, so I never really got to specifically ask her what she meant about that. But I believe what she meant is that when you watch a politician campaign, if they're running to not lose, they're not a servant. If they are scared about the weight of the office that they're running for, if they understand the pressure that being the governor of this state means, that's what service means. And I can tell you, for me, the idea that the future of every single person that lives in this state will be dependent on my performance, that's a task that I would love to undertake. But it's also one that I understand the weight of. And it is an important thing for us to find politicians who are servants, as opposed to politicians who are trying very hard not to lose. And I'm really, really excited about the next year. I think it's going to be great. And again, I appreciate you guys for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to go home.
Very good.
Thank you for letting me go first. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Welcome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, well, that was time well spent, I think. So we'll jump back into our agenda if you have it in front of you. We'll take a few minutes to talk about old business. So a couple of positive updates this evening I would share with you. We had the opportunity to get the executive committee together for the club and the bylaws committee together about a week ago. And we sat and had a long talk about where we stand with a number of initiatives, and I think we got some clarity on those coming out of that meeting, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that this evening. The first thing that we want to give you is after a lot of work by the bylaws committee, is we think we have a final product for you all. So Doug, can you give this group a quick update on the progress we've made and where we stand?
Well, we think we have a very workable and formidable set of bylaws. Janie Kirk and Roseanne Shoup and Boogie Ambler have been on our committee, and we've had a lot of experience with various organizations and how they work. And we've gone along with your idea that with the recent developments here in the executive committee and their bylaws changes and such, that we feel that the club should concentrate more on educating the public about Republicanism and Republican ideals. So our new set of bylaws is going to reflect that, and it's going to, I think, make our club more effective and more visible. And as we get our communications up better and offer a membership drive later this summer, I think the club is going to expand, and I think we will do a good job of educating the public about Republican ideals and practices.
So just a couple of edits to that. I would say we have been in flight with the bylaws since I got into office at the end of the year. So it's been an evolution to get to this point. Doug mentioned it, and I'll echo it, that the executive committee did update their bylaws and passed those bylaws several weeks ago. So we did take another look at ours in the review process, and so we did make some subtle changes to them. But our bylaws have been in work for quite some time, and so the timing then I would say is we're going to get those out to you in an email format in soft copy to the members here in the next couple weeks, and then we'd like to come back in July and sit down here and review those with you, and hopefully vote them into effect in the July meeting. So be looking for an email here in the next couple weeks, and take some edits and take an opportunity to review the edits, and then we'll come in July and vote on it.
If you have any questions, feel free to call, and we'll be glad to discuss with you why we've made the changes we've made.
And again, we'll come back in July and have an open discussion with you all on what the changes are and what we're proposing, and make sure everybody's comfortable with the reasons. So we're excited about that. The next one is communications. I've been talking about that to you a lot over the last few months, and based on, again, the meeting we had the other day, we feel very comfortable that we're going to now roll forward with our communications plan. And so very pleased to report to you all that Thomas Perkins behind us there in the red shirt has volunteered to help spearhead that initiative for us. That's going to be an exciting thing. So if you look at the components of communicating to the public, communicating to you all, getting the word out, getting this room full of people, that's one of the things we're going to be working on. So we do have a domain already, a website domain. We have a number of things that we're going to work on, and so we're really excited about the back half of the year and what Thomas is going to help us bring to the table. It's going to be a good thing for the club and a good thing for the community as we continue to work on our education forum and our process of getting people informed of what's going on from a conservative values perspective, as well as activities with the club. So pretty excited about that as well.
Mr. Perkins has a website. That's a direct link. Do you know your links right off the top of your head?
For what exactly?
For the stuff that you publish, like with the Republican Club?
Everything's done under greenbrierjournal.com.
Okay.
And then, like, the video content, that actually goes on YouTube, which is like YouTube.
Right, but it's also linked on that page.
Yes, it's all
So
on
you
the
can find everything on the
greenbrierjournal.com.
Greenbrier Journal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, Greenbrier Journal of what?
.com.
He's also got a Facebook page that he uses as well. So that is not going to be our primary communication strategy, but it's going to be a component we'll share more with you as we evolve and all that. So again, we're pretty excited about that piece. All right, new business. So here we are in the summer. Welcome to June. As Doug mentioned, and I'll echo it, one of the ideas we talked about was how do we generate more members? How do we bring out more awareness to the club? How do we get people excited about, having an opportunity to come in and hear JV talk? I mean, I would just say the average person on the street is not going to get that update that you all got tonight. We're going to have a speaker next month and the month after and the month after. So if you want to be educated as you go to the polls next May for the primary and next November for the general, this is a great opportunity to come and join us and be part of that. Now, you all are here, and so I'm preaching to the choir, but I would ask you to spread the gospel, so to speak, as you get out and among your constituents and friends. So with that, we are going to kick off a summer membership drive, and we're going to take a hard look at dues, and we're going to look at activities and those kind of things. And we think a picnic might be a good way to get started with that. Put something out in the paper and get a date and get everybody out, cook some hot dogs, and bring the general public in to understand more about the club and what we're all about. And we think there's an opportunity to bring some of the local officials into that. The commissioners, I've talked to you about that over the last couple of months, but that would be a great opportunity to bring them in so they can speak to their constituents as well. So we're going to be working on that, and we're going to try to squeeze that in between now and the fair. I think somewhere in July is probably the time we're going to kick that off. With that, it is parade and festival season all of a sudden, so everybody is doing something right now. We are looking at the schedule that we have for what parades are available, what festivals are out there, and there's a lot of things going on as I mentioned, and we'll continue to be there. But I think the River Festival is next weekend. Is that right?
Yes.
So the River Festival down there at the island next weekend, and then of course the Alderson Parade is 4th of July, and we do have an ad in the booklet already. We paid for and corrected on that. So we just ask you all stay close to your email as we get warming up to those ideas of what we want to participate in and where we want to be and when we want to be there. We certainly like people to participate in those and represent the club in a variety of ways throughout this summer. Yes, sir.
We might give some kudos to Allie and her friends and Denise Morrissey for having a very exciting float in the Dandelion Festival Parade.
Oh, good.
In spite of the rain and cold, they had a float that absolutely had to be the best in show over there.
So Allie, you want to talk about that for a second? Or?
Photographs? I do.
Let everybody take a look and we'll keep going.
One of the things is that we have a great banner that says "Join the Republican Club." It's white with red letters. We use it in our booth at the state fair every year. But we really need to have another banner like that made so that we can have one for each side of the vehicles or the float. So I would propose that the club authorize expending the money to get a duplicate banner made.
Okay. Is there a motion on the floor to do that? Right.
I'll make a motion we do that.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Doug, your banner is approved. Stuff gets done.
Allie can make banners.
Thanks, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Good source.
Point out that there's also a parade this weekend at in Union.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, it's Farmer's Day. Yeah, it seems like every community is popping up with something.
And there will be a Republican float in that parade. So anybody who's interested in participating,
Terrific.
you can contact me or contact Ben, I guess.
Yep. So while Alex walk that around, we'll just keep going in the interest of time. I don't want to belabor everybody out here. But anyway, I would just ask y'all as we or get organized around our activities for the summer. We'll talk about it in the meeting when we know them. If not, check your email and you'll see the items of where we're going to be and when we're going to be there. So that will be that. With that, I'm open to items for the good of the club. Is there anything anybody would like to talk about that we have not covered at this point?
Have you gotten someone at the fair?
We have not yet. Recruiting will start here shortly.
I've got a person to work one shift, so I may have somebody else on the call.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna cover that.
Because I'll be working in another building.
I understand. But yeah, we are looking for, we get down to the volunteer thing, we're gonna talk about that. So, anybody else have any open items we want to chat about? Once, twice? Okay. All right, dates to remember, the second page, backside of your little handout. Things are coming fast and furious, as I mentioned, between parades, festivals, and other things. There are dates out there that we need to talk to you about, remind you about. Jack David Woodrum is doing a fundraiser on the 13th down at the Schoolhouse Hotel in White Sulphur Springs. So if you're interested in doing that, I believe that starts at 5 o'clock on the 13th. So if you're interested, you can let Jack David's office know that you would like to participate in that. We'll be back here on July 6th with Rashida Yost. She'll be coming down from Martinsburg. She's also a gubernatorial candidate. She'd like to come down and spend some time with us and talk a little bit about what she's all about and introduce herself to us. So we're excited to have her here. August 3rd, we're back here at first Thursday of the month. We'll have Chris Miller in from
We may have some changes in.
Yeah, we need to change that.
We will have candidates.
Oh, okay.
Scheduling. I spoke with him the day before yesterday, he needs to change that to October.
Okay. So we will come back, we'll move Chris to October,
Correct.
and we will find someone to fill the August slot. So as I mentioned, the fair is the 10th through the 19th of August, so it's not too early to start thinking about what days and shifts you'd like to work at the fair, at the booth. It's the same thing we've done over the last couple of years. We'll be in the West Virginia building, an information station, we'll have a little, some things that we will accept donations for, as we did last year. It's really a nice time. Recognize that it is a commitment of time, so I'd ask you all to think about those dates and when you might be available to join us at the fair. With that, coming out of the fair, on September 7th, we're going to have Mac Warner will be here in this room. And we're very excited to have Colonel Warner back in Greenbrier County and talk to us in the club. So also a gubernatorial candidate if you were not aware of where he stands right now. And so we will continue to push the calendar out. As I mentioned several times, our goal is to bring a speaker in every month and drive our education program and awareness. So we think it's value added. It's not just a normal club meeting, it's an educational session. So if folks are interested in what's going on with your gubernatorial candidates, and this is the place to come see them. And it's a nice intimate thing. You have your conversations with them and they're very open. So we'd ask everybody to think through that. We've got some volunteer opportunities. So again, we're looking for a membership chair. That is one of the major updates in the bylaws. You'll see that role coming up quite often. And as a person to kind of head up our membership program, I would like to have someone to kind of own that going into it. And again, as I mentioned last month, dinner committee, it's not too early to start thinking about December and our Christmas dinner. We want to expand and attract some new talent into our dinner committee program so we can continue to keep that fresh and alive. Any other comments for the group? Again, I would just, to close, would tell you two things. One, I think these programs we're doing are very, very good. And so if you think they're good and you like what you're seeing, then tell your friends about it. The club is not restrictive to members only. This is a public forum. Anybody's invited. Anybody who's interested in hearing these folks, please invite them in. We'd love to have them and learn more about who we are and what we're doing, as well as listen to the candidates talk about their plank and where they stand on issues. And so it's a great opportunity, as I mentioned, to meet. And also, it is Flag Day, June 14th. So if you try to remember that as a day to honor our flag and our country, and we'd appreciate that. So with that, Mr. Ron Kirk, if you could lead us in God Bless America, we will close the meeting here. There you go.
Okay. All together now.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you being here. Have a good month.